You know how some rifles out there talk big? More and more bolt gun makers are throwing out buzzwords that it's getting harder to tell what's new and what's just reheated with a new paint job. So, the question is, how do we know which bolt guns in 2025 have actually earned their reputation thus far? In this video, we'll talk about 8 of the best bolt-action rifles of 2025, ranked and reviewed with brutal honesty. We'll cover mid-priced and jaw-droppingly pricey rigs that all feel like precision instruments. We'll break down how they handle in the real world, how they group, how they carry, and how they stack up when your money's on the line. Oh, and just wait till you see what's sitting at number 1. You won't find it at your local box store. When Ruger launched the original precision rifle a decade ago, it rewrote what an out-of-the-box chassis gun could cost. The 2025 refresh keeps the same spirit but adds the tweaks competitors kept bolting on themselves. A thicker, cold hammer-forged barrel lives under a milled handguard that now carries an integral Arca rail from tip to receiver. Gone is the screech of metal on metal when sliding a bipod clamp. This rail stays square and smooth. Ruger's bolt received a DLC coating, and the lift feels more like a custom action than a mass-produced part. Shooters can run the factory single-stage break around 2¼ pounds, or swap to any AR pattern trigger if they crave a wall and second stage. Mine's in 6.5 Creedmoor, weighs 12½ pounds with an optic, a weight that keeps the reticle calm during rapid strings, but ensures you carry it slung, not cradled, during a field match. 3 5-shot groups average 0.79 MOA with Hornady 140 grain ELD match, and I have no doubt handloads could do better. Long-range students appreciate that the rifle accepts AI and Magpul mags interchangeably, a small mercy when you forget one or the other on match day. Downsides remain. At this weight, you won't be dragging it up alpine ridges, and shooting offhand feels like lifting a barbell after a few stages. Still, for around $1,900, a shooter can buy a rifle that needs only a scope and ballistic card to go straight to a PRS course, with enough factory support and spare parts availability that a broken handguard screw isn't the end of the world. Experienced competitors still drop coin on full customs, yet more than a few keep the new RPR as a trainer because the ergonomics mirror their race guns while costing less than half. Utah-based Fierce Firearms built its name on carbon-wrapped barrels, but this year it pivoted to a deeply spiral-fluted steel tube that brings cost down without torching the brand's accuracy reputation. The twisted rogue couples that barrel with a 2-lug action that lifts 70 degrees, short enough to clear low-slung optics yet familiar to hunters raised on Model 70s. At 6.3 pounds in short-action trim, the rifle balances perfectly over the magazine well, and the carbon fiber stock refuses to warp even in triple-digit desert heat. Caliber choices stretch from 22 Creedmoor to 300 PRC, and barrel lengths run 18 to 24 inches. I got a 20-inch 308 set up for suppressed mule deer hunts, and after seasoning the barrel, I logged a trio of 3/4-inch groups with Berger 168 grain Classic Hunter. Fierce includes a side port Nix muzzle brake that self-times by hand. It tames recoil, but, like any open port brake, blasts dust sky-high when fired prone. The TriggerTech trigger is as crisp as advertised, and the double-stack magazine feeds smoothly, a small miracle in a world where detachable boxes too often miss pickup rails by a hair. Naysayers point to Fierce's higher-priced carbon models and wonder if the Twisted Rogue cheapens the brand. But most shooters are just excited to see a lightweight, sub-MOA rifle finally hit shelves under $1,800. If ounces matter and you want something different than yet another carbon-wrap barrel, this spiral-fluted option brings personality and performance in equal measure. Steel plate weekends have exploded in popularity, and Finland's engineers clearly paid attention when drawing up the Ace line. The Ace Target shares the T3x receiver that hunters swear by, but it drops that receiver into a full monolithic aluminum chassis that embraces everything a modern match shooter demands. The buttstock adjusts for length, comb, cant, and even recoil pad angle without tools, and the ambidextrous thumb shelf lets you settle in behind the trigger instead of hovering beside it. A cold hammer-forged, 5-groove heavy barrel mates to the receiver through the same precision threads Tikka uses on its sniper contracts, and a 10-round double-stack magazine feeds with the gravel-smooth reliability that smaller Tikkas are famous for. If you mount a 32-ounce scope and a 6-ounce bipod, It'll bring the weight to nearly 14 pounds, but the rifle will still balance well. Groups can run half an inch in 6mm Creedmoor using Hornady 108 grain ELD match, and vertical dispersion stays flat in a 10-shot string thanks to that thick barrel soaking heat. Complaints revolve around scarcity, import quotas vanish fast, and the lack of an optional folding butt, which would help with transport. Street price hovers just north of $2,000, but shooters tally the savings once they realize the rifle needs nothing but glass to enter factory division PRS. Online chatter praises the decision to clone the chassis geometry in the Rimfire T3x Ace, practicing weekly with 5-cent ammo that feels exactly like the big gun makes the price of admission feel reasonable. Small shop ingenuity often fades when a company scales, but Seekins has managed to keep its mad scientist vibe while producing rifles that land on big box shelves. The PH3 is essentially a PH2 that spent a semester abroad and came home with advanced tools. A 3-lug bolt lifts 60 degrees and strips without tools, letting you wipe dust away between stages. The quick-change barrel system welcomes factory or gunsmith spun tubes, and because Seekins published the thread specs, you can order a blank from nearly any barrel maker and have it spun on in less than an hour. The carbon composite stock hides a rigid mini chassis, and M-lock slots run the length of the forend beside an Arca rail that snaps straight onto a tripod cradle. Chamberings include 6mm Creedmoor, 308, and 300 PRC right now, but more are rumored. My demo model in 6.5 PRC shot 5-shot groups barely over half an inch with factory Hornady ELD match. The TriggerTech primary trigger breaks like snapping a dry twig at 2.5 pounds, exactly where I said it. Pros include easy caliber swaps and a barreled action stiff enough that the point of impact barely shifts after reinstalling the tube. Cons are the proprietary bottom metal and price-your replacement magazines. AICS mags won't latch without an adapter. Still, at $1,900 list price and closer to $1,800 in store, the PH3 provides a modular platform that can hunt antelope on Saturday. Then, after a 15-minute barrel swap, shoot an NRL match on Sunday with the same stock and glass. Savage already had a foothold in the precision hunting crossover space, but the professional pursuit rifle completes the transition. It starts with a standard length 110 action bedded into a Graybow Phoenix 2 carbon fiber stock. Not the glue-in arrangement some companies use, but a solid pillar and integral bedding block that holds torque. A 20-inch Proof Research carbon-wrapped barrel keeps overall weight down to 7.25 pounds. Every barrel is threaded 5/8 20, and Savage installs its Omniport muzzle brake at the factory so buyers can shoot lighter loads the same afternoon. Chamber lists span 6.5 Creedmoor, 308, and 300 Win Mag. But whichever you choose, the barrel length stays constant, so suppressor length remains predictable across calibers. The 300 Win Mag can produce 3/4-inch groups with Barnes 175 grain LRX, and recoil feels more like a light 308 than a belted Magnum, thanks to that brake and a well-designed stock. Hunters praise the quick-detach sling cups and vertical grip. Competition shooters like the Arca rail under the forend. Detractors mention a faint, gritty feel to the bolt when new and a slightly stubborn AICS magazine release, both of which eased after a weekend of cycling. At just under $2,400 MSRP, the 110 PPR invades the territory long dominated by custom light rifles, yet still carries the factory warranty and proven AccuTrigger that can be dialed as low as 2 pounds. Roy Weatherby's flagship action always prized speed, but shaving ounces has become an equal priority for modern mountain hunters. The Backcountry 2.0 weds a titanium-studded carbon stock to the iconic 9-lug Mark V action, then chambers the rifle in Federal's 7mm Backcountry cartridge, a stainless-cased Magnum capable of 80,000 psi pressure levels. The action remains remarkably trim, and the entire rifle tips the scale at 5 pounds 15 ounces before you add glass. Weatherby fits a fluted 20-inch barrel and finishes it with a radial brake that flares slightly, so muzzle blast projects forward rather than sideways. A 3D-printed recoil pad compresses in stages to soften the snap that comes from launching a 170 grain bullet at 3,000 feet per second from such a bantamweight chassis. This rifle can consistently do 1-inch groups despite gusting wind. Recoil, while noticeable, never bruises your collarbone, especially if you screw on a suppressor. 5 cartridges fit in the internal box magazine, besting most Magnum bolt guns by 2 rounds. Some focus on price versus practical accuracy. Plenty of heavier rifles group tighter, but none carry this lightly while delivering Magnum reach. Hunters who have lugged the backcountry up Colorado's 14ers rave about saving half a pound on every ascent. At a real-world street price around 2,400 smackers, the rifle finds owners who accept a bit more kick in exchange for miles of easier climbing. Geissele built its empire on AR triggers that never quit, so expectations ran high when the company unveiled a turn-bolt big-game rifle. The King Hunter earns its royalty by embracing the same overbuilt mindset. The nano-weapon-coated action shrugs off rust and fouling, and inside that action, a floating bolt head rides on a roller-guided firing pin that glides instead of rattles. Chambered exclusively, for now, in 7mm backcountry, the rifle manages pressures that scare ordinary brass and still lifts easily, thanks to a short 90-degree throw. A 20-inch stainless barrel exits the Manor's carbon stock at a moderate contour, keeping weight a hair over 8 pounds ready to hunt. The Super 700 two-stage trigger breaks clean after a short first stage, something PRS shooters will recognize immediately. Out on the steel range, the King Hunter needed only 4 shots to run from 200 to 1,000 yards, because elevation clicked into line with data printed on the bore sighting card. Magazine compatibility with standard PMAG long actions means spares are $10 instead of $60. The Suave QD brake matches Hux WRX flow suppressors without shims, making the swap from brake to can a literal 1-minute task. Granted, $3,800 is kind of steep for a first-generation bolt gun, but those who have shot one claim nothing else combines the pressure rating, the coating, and the out-of-the-box trigger that competes with $200 aftermarket units. I fall in the latter camp after hauling the rifle through a rain-soaked Pennsylvania bear season without a speck of surface corrosion. Topping the list is the Bridger, a rifle that feels less like a production model and more like the result of an engineer's private challenge to see how many high-grade materials can coexist in one hunting arm. Long-action Defiant steel, a titanium barrel sleeve bonded to stainless, a Timney Elite Hunter trigger, and a Macmillan Mountain Tracker carbon stock make up the core build. The rifle weighs 6 3/4 pounds, even with its titanium muzzle brake and integral ARCA and pick rails installed. Watchtower equips the Bridger in 7mm PRC first, with other Magnum chamberings to follow, and guarantees sub-MOA 5-shot accuracy, a figure early reviewers are crushing by a healthy margin. This rifle can shoot Hornady 175-grain ELDX into .6 groups at 300 yards, no typo, after dialing downwind. Those groups did not drift as the rifle warmed, because the tie-strike barrel dissipates heat faster than ordinary steel, a trait noticeable when I fire a 10-shot ladder and watch Mirage bloom off the break. Group size barely moves. Field carrying proves equally pleasing. The center of gravity sits just forward of the receiver ring, so the rifle rides neutral in one hand as you clamber tailless. The only real negative is the price of entry, $6,500 MSRP and not much less on the street, and limited early supply. Those who have money to burn appreciate its bleeding-edge metallurgy, sub-custom shop tolerances, and a warranty that covers the barrel and action for life. Most of us, me included, would balk. But this is a near 7-pound package that shoots like a bench gun and carries like a mountain rifle. This is why the Bridger earns the crown for 2025. So there you have it, 8 of the best bolt-action rifles on the market in 2025. Which one would you take home first? Are you building out a backcountry setup, a precision trainer, or just looking for something you won't outgrow? Let us know in the comments. Then hit like, share this video, subscribe to the channel, and don't forget to smash that bell icon for more no BS firearm rundowns. Thanks for watching.